Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Neanderthal. Now I can guess the image that's probably coming up in your mind. A heavy, stupid, thuggish brute. A stereotype. In fact, the word itself is an insult in our language, mostly at football matches. But what do you really know about the Neanderthal human? A human quite similar to you who walked this planet for 200,000 years and last left a footprint on the earth 30,000 years ago. Now in Earth years, that's just yesterday. A part of the human family on the great human journey and now extinct. What's the story? What's the cautionary tale? The relevance to us today? Why did they disappear? And why should we care? Let me tell you about the Neanderthal. All this information comes from the fossilized records of the last century. The bones of the Neanderthal have been found all over Europe and in parts of Asia. And there is a full articulated skeleton that's been constructed. They lived in caves, so their lifestyle and habits have also been evidenced and studied. When the first upright walking humans left Africa, called Homo erectus, and that means just walking and standing, they travelled the globe and they settled in various continents. Now in Europe and parts of Asia, they developed into a human species called Neanderthal. And they call this because the very first bones that were found were in the Neander Valley in Germany. Yes, they were shorter than us, but only a little bit. They were very powerful and much more heavily muscled than modern man. And they had huge barrel chests. They lived 200,000 years ago in a very cold climate. And because of their build and their muscles, they handled the cold really well. They lived in small groups, mostly families, and they hunted in woodland areas. They used spears to kill their prey, but they needed to be very close to their prey so they could thrust the spear into them. They used fire, they ate cooked meat, and they wore skins for warmth. Cooking meat was very important because it gives you more faster digested calories and nutrition for the brain. They nursed each other when sick with herbs. They buried their dead. They had large brains, 20% larger than ours, though our brains are a higher percentage of our full body weight. They had prefrontal cortexes, which is the part of the brain that organises, plans and imagines. So obviously they're not the brutes of legend. Did they speak? Yes, they did. They had a voice box. But they had very restricted necks, so they did not have as much flexibility of sound as we do. But they had a rudimentary language. So in the last 100,000 years, another species arose and started to inhabit the earth. It is believed that this human came out of the grasslands of Africa. Now, this human was taller, slighter in build, and could run and was very agile. This human hunted with spears, but could throw the spears at a distance and did not need to be close to their prey. They could not handle the cold as well as the Neanderthal, but they made up for it with their ability in tools and primitive technology. This group was Homo sapien, modern man. They lived side by side with the Neanderthal for many thousands of years. Many thousands of years. So why did one species survive and thrive and one disappear from the earth when they were so similar? As with many things in life, it appears to have been due to chance. Sometimes it's the small things that make all the difference. So guess what? The climate changed suddenly. The Ice Age came and climate became unstable. the vegetation changed. Within generations, the woodlands started to disappear and the grasslands came. Neanderthal were perfectly adapted to the woodlands. Homo sapiens could handle the woodlands, but they were adapted to the grasslands, where they could hunt better with long legs and flying spears. The Neanderthal were pushed back further and further into the despairing woodland. Their little groups became more isolated and they couldn't connect much with each other. You know, they nearly made it. They could learn and change, but they weren't built for the environmental change, and it was too rapid for them to adapt. They lost the numbers needed to sustain a population, and they vanished forever. Or was it forever? Because recently the human genome has been mapped, and they have found Neanderthal DNA in Europeans. So this reminds me really strongly of the current film representation of the planet of the apes. The apes represent the alternative species, that is, the Neanderthal. If they just had a chance, they might have made it. Homo sapiens went on to develop culture, language, abstract thinking, trade, and travelled the globe. Not because they were necessarily smarter, but because they were more agile and suited to the new environment and had a chance to grow and develop. We also had longer throats and thus the gift of language, and we could communicate complex ideas with each other. So what? Here we are, 30,000 years later, and we're using smartphones and we've got computers. A species has triumphed and a species has disappeared. One of the obvious forces was adaptation to the changing environment and climate change. We are now facing another climate change. But what will it mean for our species? Because that's all we are, a species who got lucky the last time. Will we be so lucky this time? Is this climate change the ultimate challenge for us? Are we so technologically advanced and capable of rapid adaptation that we're safe? Or are we too dependent on our current sources of energy such that our adaptive abilities have been permanently altered? Will another species more suited to the changing world arise? Or is it just a matter of chance, like it was for the Neanderthal, that the changes will be so great, so rapid, so volatile and so violent that we too may one day vanish forever, like our Neanderthal brothers and sisters, and become extinct? Madam Toastmaster.
Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Kathy for this extremely informative style of speech, which was also thought-provoking and which was a chronological narrative of humankind itself. But within the speech was also a cautionary tale, and it's a cautionary tale which extends over not generations, it extends over eons of human existence, over life. And it concluded with a question to us, and inherent in the question was in fact a message. This was a warning, in fact, inherent in the question. The speech was really well structured. It was structured to inform us of our history, but also it informed us of a parallel history, the history of our genetic cousins, those of the Neanderthals. And the conclusion of this structure had the last word being, in fact, the title of the speech. It's extinct. Now, this was probably what we could consider the theme of the speech, the theme of extinction. I loved the questions that she posed to the audience during the speech. Did the Neanderthals vanish forever? And this led on to the possibility of Neanderthal DNA in modern Europeans. Are we safe? Is the question. I loved her descriptions and expressions that she used, describing Neanderthals as heavy, stupid, thuggish brutes, and this being, of course, a rather insulting expression, and how they had huge barrel chests. I've never heard the expression barrel chest, because I can imagine that they're big-chested, strong beings. That's the image that I get. Her description of we human beings being a species who got lucky is something thought-provoking. And how, they nearly made it. Description of a quirk of ancient history. She gave liberal eye contact and hand expressions. However, a suggestion for Kathy, I'd like to say, is that could she follow through with more answers to the questions that she posed to us? Like, I'm very interested to hear more about existing DNA of Neanderthals in modern human society. I'm interested to hear more about the Neanderthal skeleton and fossil records. Also, the second suggestion I have for Kathy is related to probably rehearsal. I'd love to see Kathy have a reduced reliance upon her notes, and then with that reduced reliance upon notes, that would enhance her projection, her overall projection in the speech, such as, so what does this have relevance to us in modern human society? Are we safe? Am I? More sort of examples like that ask, am I safe? So overall, it was an absolutely fascinating subject, I feel, to most people, replete with really interesting information and structured into an encompassing theme. And I suggest, with a bit more of that practice and projection, I'd suggest Kathy give us more speeches to do with humanities and human history. Toastmaster.